It's so crazy to me how real some stories feel. The stories I enjoy the most are the ones that have the richest backstories and lore. Take, for example, stories like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Star Wars, or Ghost in the Shell. The worlds these stories create and take place in actually feel lived in. The settings have personality, and the major and minor characters have super interesting arcs, and they just feel real. The world building is so well done that they just feel like they could actually exist. And I think it would be really interesting to live in if they did. Now, there's one story, however, that I think takes the cake compared to the stories I've mentioned in the beginning. In all reality, the margin is a slim one, but to me, A Song of Ice and Fire, written by George R.R. Martin, is by far the most rich. His ability to weave lore and history into Game of Thrones gives the world of Planeteros incredible dimension. Adding on top of that, the fact that a lot of it is based on our own actual history gives us a sense of familiarity and relatability. It blows my mind how reading the history of A Song of Ice and Fire gives me a sense that I'm reading actual history, and I absolutely live for it. It's probably also partially due to the fact that I'm a bit of a history nerd, but who's keeping score anyway? Which is why I decided to create a new series called A Game of Thrones History and Lore. In this series, I'll be covering some of the most interesting, in my opinion, stories of history and lore that we find in A Song of Ice and Fire. Since you're tuning in, today I'm going to talk about the Dawn Age, the very earliest history of Planeteros. With all that said, let's get into it. Now, before we get into the Dawn Age specifically, I want to briefly cover how recording time in Planeteros works. It's similar to our own year tracking where we implement before Common Era BCE and after Common Era ACE. In Planeteros, they use before conquest BC and after conquest AC as a means of referencing historical events. The conquest in BC and AC refer to Aegon's conquest, whereby Aegon the Conqueror invaded Westeros and united the Seven Kingdoms into what we see in Planeteros in the current feudal system of government. As with any early history, we never know many details, and this is no different in A Song of Ice and Fire. The Dawn Age, as I said before, refers to Planeteros' earliest history, so when it comes to facts, well, there aren't many. However, based on what we believe to be mostly true, we can split up the Dawn Age into 3 different periods based on the events that occurred during that time. Prehistory, the invasion of the First Men, and the signing of the Pact. During the time of prehistory, Westeros wasn't inhabited by men at all. In fact, it was inhabited by a number of different magical creatures, including the children of the forest and the giants. This all changed, however, in 12,000 BC. Initially crossing through the Arm of Dorne, men traveled from Essos to Westeros, wielding bronze weapons and using their technology to wreak havoc for the original inhabitants of Westeros. Fighting back these invaders, the Arm of Dorne was shattered by the Children of the Forest using the Hammer of the Waters, aka magic, and creating an island chain that became known as the Stepstones. With only magic and obsidian, the Children of the Forest tried to fight back their larger, stronger, and more technologically advanced adversaries, but it proved to be very difficult. Only after years of conflict did we move into the final period for this age, named for the peace treaty signed by the First Men and Children of the Forest. Since the conflict was at a standstill for both parties, at the Isle of Faces, the two groups decided to put their differences aside and create a plan to cohabitate peacefully in 10,000 BC. The agreements of the pacts were pretty straightforward as well. The Children of the Forest were given domain over the forested areas, and men were given dominion over open lands. Fun fact, it's speculated that this pact led to the first men taking on the religion of the old gods as a result. The HBO series alludes to additional pieces of this history, suggesting that the children of the forest created White Walkers to fight off the first men. Now, there is very little information given to us with regards to this time period, so even though the show alludes to these certain pieces of it, we can't say for sure this is how things went down according to the books. But of course, I'm excited to find out more as the rest of A Song of Ice and Fire content becomes available to us. Now let me know what you think below. Does George Martin do a good job of creating lore and history around A Song of Ice and Fire? Do you think he will give us more information about this period of Planeteros? Would you be upset if the children of the forest don't end up creating the White Walkers in the books? Comment below. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and have a great day.